Hey everyone! Today we're going to dive into a really powerful cloud design pattern, one that can take your app's biggest scaling nightmare and turn it into, well, its greatest strength.
So let me ask you a question. Is your application a victim of its own success? It's a great problem to have, right? You've got more users, more traffic, things are growing. But what happens when the architecture you built starts to creak and groan under all that pressure? Suddenly, that amazing success, it becomes your biggest engineering headache.
And for a lot of applications, this is the reality. That simple, monolithic design that got you off the ground, it eventually hits a hard wall, a point where it just can't grow anymore. Let's actually sketch out what that breaking point looks like.
Okay, so let's imagine we're drawing a really standard application on a whiteboard. It's super straightforward. You've got your app service, your website or your API, and it's talking to a single SQL database. A classic, totally reliable setup that works like a charm, right up until the moment it doesn't.
You see, this simple design gets boxed in by some really tough constraints. First up, scalability. Sure, you can scale up just by a bigger, beefier server, but you're going to hit an absolute limit. There's only so big a server can get. Then there's data isolation. All your customer data is just sitting together in one database. That's a huge problem for clients who have strict compliance rules. And what about custom needs? Maybe a big client wants their own dedicated setup, or they want updates less frequently. You can't do it. And finally, global reach. What if you want to expand to Europe? Data residency laws might mean you have to keep European data on European soil. A single region app just can't do it. Each one of these is a brick wall that this architecture just slams into.
So how do we smash through these walls without having to rewrite everything from scratch? This is that aha moment. Instead of trying to make one thing infinitely bigger, what if we just made more identical copies of it? That's the beautiful, almost deceptively simple idea behind the deployment stamp pattern.
And this is where it all just clicks into place. Watch this. We take our entire application stack, the app service, the database, the whole shebang, and we just stamp out a new identical copy, and then another one, and another. Each of these things we're calling a stamp is a completely self-contained, totally independent unit, completely isolated from all the others. And just like that, our problems, they just vanish. Remember that scalability wall we hit? It's gone. As you can see here, we just add another stamp whenever we need more capacity. That's practically infinite horizontal scaling. That client who needed data isolation? No problem. They get their own dedicated stamp. Need to launch in a new country to meet data residency laws? You just deploy a brand new stamp in that region. The old limitations are completely wiped out.
Okay, this is awesome, but it does bring up a new challenge, right? I mean, if we have dozens or even hundreds of these stamps, each with its own URL, how do we give our users one single, seamless experience? You can't just ask people to remember which specific stamp they belong to. That would be a complete nightmare.
Well, the solution is this really smart traffic management layer that sits right in front of everything. Think of it like a global traffic router. A service like Azure Front Door is a perfect example. This thing acts as the single front door for our entire application. Every user, no matter where they are in the world, comes to this one unified entry point.
And here's how it works, and it's so smooth. A user's request hits that single global URL. The router then intelligently inspects the request. Maybe it looks at a subdomain or a header, or maybe just where the user is located. Based on the rules you set up, it knows exactly which stamp that user belongs to, and boom, it sends their traffic there instantly. For the user, it's completely transparent. It just works.
Now, as powerful as this pattern is, and it really is, it's not a silver bullet. You wouldn't use a sledgehammer to crack a nut, right? So it's absolutely critical to know when this is the right tool for the job and when it's just total overkill. So let's build out a clear decision-making guide.
This little table lays it all out pretty clearly. You should definitely be thinking about stamps when you have those natural scaling limits, like with a database. It's a perfect fit for needing strict data isolation or multi-region deployments, or even if you need to let some clients stay on older versions of your software. On the other hand, if your solution is really simple, or if only one tiny part of it needs to scale, this might be too much. And here's a big one. If you absolutely need all of your data replicated everywhere all the time, you need to look at other patterns because remember, stamps are designed from the ground up to be isolated.
So you've decided to use the deployment stamp pattern. That's fantastic. But you have to know, adopting this architecture means you have to think a little differently about how you operate and manage your system for the long run. This isn't just a technical change, it's an operational one too.
First thing, and this is absolutely non-negotiable, automation is mandatory. You have to use infrastructure as code to deploy your stamps. Trying to do this by hand at scale is, well, it's impossible. Second, You have to plan for cross-stamp operations. How are you going to run a report across all of your customers? Are you going to query every single stamp, or maybe use a central data warehouse? Third, define your scale-out policies. What's the trigger that tells the system to automatically spin up a new stamp? You also have to think about the cost. Remember, every new stamp is a full copy of your infrastructure. And finally, plan for the complex stuff, like how you're going to move a customer from one stamp to another if they get too big for their current one.
So, at the end of the day, the deployment stamp pattern is really more than just a technique. It's a mindset. It forces you to stop thinking about your immediate needs and start building for massive scale and resiliency right from day one. And it leaves us with a really critical question we should be asking of any system we build. Are we just architecting for today, or are we truly preparing for the explosive growth of tomorrow?